if another name is on the market, he's going to fetch the biggest return. And that name is Erik Karlsson. A lot of people are starting to talk about Karlsson. It's starting to get louder a little bit. I know Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now put out a piece saying, trade him right now. Like, this is the time to trade him. But another insider, Elliot Friedman of 32 Thoughts, decided that he wanted to join the conversation earlier this week. Said, quote, "Here's my theory on Erik Karlsson. Again, I want to stress this is a theory. He played really well at Four Nations, and you know who I could see him thriving with is the Dallas Stars." Now, Friedman went on to admit the salary cap makes it a little bit tough. He went on to once again reiterate that this is an opinion. This is not based on anything he has heard. This is just him thinking about possible landing spots for Erik Karlsson that would fit. He credits the ties with Pete DeBoer and their time together in San Jose. He credits, Jim Nill being at the Four Nations with Team Canada and seeing that firsthand. And he also says the Stars already have their defensive structure in place. And if they want to kind of get past the level that they've been at, which is second round / Western Conference Finals, maybe you need to make a drastic change in bringing in a guy like Erik Karlsson. So the question for you, Horwat, is, will Erik Karlsson be traded in the next 10 days leading up to the trade deadline?
No, I don't think he'll get traded in the next 10 days. Mostly because it's Erik Karlsson. We saw how a trade out of San Jose took about a year to happen when the first rumblings started. There really hasn't been much of a whisper of what's going on here. There was Marco's fire sale thing, which, guess what? Now we're discussing Erik Karlsson on the trade market. Funny how that works, isn't it?
The possibility of it. Again, this is an opinion by Elliot Friedman, and it was also opinion by Kingerski in Pittsburgh. So,
and it was an opinion of Marco, or at least because that's the point that I took from Marco, and that was they'd be willing to move a guy like Karlsson. Friedman went on to note that the pure cash of Karlsson, goes down next season and the season after that. So the cap hit stays the same, but for the last 2 years of his contract, the pure money that you're paying the player goes down a bit, and I think it keeps going down after bonuses. I think even if the Penguins wait until after the bonus is paid, then it's even less dollars to be sent to another team. So there's that bit of it. And one of the lines that really struck me from Friedman was, now maybe whoever gets him waits until after that. The words "whoever goes and gets him" is kind of big there. Like, the insinuation of someone's going to be out there to go and get him. I don't know if it'll be in the next 10 days. That's unlikely considering the have to ask the player for that. They got to get the player's approval, have to find the team that the player is going to be willing to go to, and then have to work out the dollars. And in 10 days, that seems unlikely. However, once this season ends, once those dollars are paid, once those bonuses are paid, whatever they may be, once that big money goes down and that salary cap goes up, then you're looking at something a little different. Sure, he's a year older, but if he can finish the year strong, maybe the Penguins and Kyle Dubas are able to make a nice nice draft day trade. You know what I mean? Something like that. Again, the conversations with Karlsson would have to start the second the buzzer rings on the final game.
Yeah.
And then go from there. Because you're going to need all that time. But for now, I don't see it happening in the next 10 days because unless Kyle Dubas is working something quick, in which case I don't expect the trade to be a good trade, but I could see it happening before puck drop next season.
Yeah, it definitely isn't going to happen at the trade deadline because a trade like this takes time, especially with somebody who has performed well, but not up to standard in Pittsburgh. Certainly not up to contract in Pittsburgh. The one thing I will say, and I agree with you, I think you're alluding to this, is it is increasingly clear that he is not going to finish this contract with the Pittsburgh Penguins, that eventually they will move on from him. But it's not going to happen in the next 10 days. I mean, look at when the Penguins acquired Erik Karlsson. There were rumblings, there were rumors, there was all of this going into that trade deadline when he was having that remarkable season with the San Jose Sharks. And it didn't get done until August, right? It was August 5th or August 6th. That's when the trade got done, whenever we got to a point where we said, we don't think the Karlsson trade might ever happen. It took that long because they worked on it at the trade deadline. They worked on it throughout the summer. But because of the player, because of the cap hit, because of everything going on, and it was harder back then because the salary cap had not moved very much since the return from COVID. It might move a little bit quicker this summer because, one, less years left on that contract. Two, probably less money that you have to take on, as Elliot Friedman alluded to. But I do think this is still going to be a move when it happens, that it's going to take some time. So I agree with you that the offseason is more likely, especially with everything with the financials that have been outlined here, but not in the next 10 days. No, not a chance this happens in the next 10 days. And if it does, like you mentioned, I'm a little nervous about what that return might look like, unless the Dallas Stars, who did pay a first-round pick for Mikhail Granlund and Cody Ceci, are desperate again and want to trade away more assets for Erik Karlsson.
If Miro Heiskanen is out way longer than everyone suspects, maybe. But I think he's supposed to come back within a couple days. But even so, losing him would have been huge had the Four Nations face-off not been a thing. And they were losing him for games to be played during those 2 weeks. Maybe the Dallas Stars would have gotten desperate enough to sort of start throwing things around, getting in touch with the Penguins about adding another solid defenseman in terms of veteran, has the skill to be a top defenseman in one way or the other, whether it be offense, defense, or all-around play like Miro Heiskanen has. They are a team that needs that extra punch of scoring, though. And Erik Karlsson has not brought that extra punch of scoring in recent years. But maybe going to a system where, everyone's defensive play is already top-notch, and Jake Ottinger is playing behind me. Mm-hmm. Screw it. I'm just going to turn into San Jose Sharks Erik Karlsson again.
I mean, he has it in him. He showed it at the Four Nations face-off. Maybe going to a team, like you mentioned, like that, allows the coaching staff to take the reins off a little bit. Say, hey, be as aggressive as humanly possible. Offense, no defense. Go. And that's where he succeeds.
Yep.
Mike Sullivan's never going to say that to anybody. He's never going to, the only player that he's probably not going to say, hey, you need to play a little bit more defense is Crosby. And we've seen that this year. But Crosby's defensive game has been a little rough this year. But, maybe Dallas is a good fit. Elliot Friedman thinks it is. And we'll have to wait and see what happens. But again, this is a lot of speculation. I doubt we're going to see anything by the end of the season. We'll see what happens in this offseason because it could get very interesting.